on the board.
No more comments, snide comments.
I'm sorry that I'm
Please, can we
touching
just-
hot buttons for everybody. I'm very sorry. But I think all of this needs to be said, and strongly, because it's a rational thinking. I'm also sorry that I'm recording this. I'm the reason, by the way, everybody, all the residents here, I'm the reason that the village now records every meeting, because I took a year and a half of my time in my life, and I sat here with my damn camera, and I recorded everything and put pressure on the village, and they finally do this for you, so now you can sit at your home and watch the village meetings. So I just, again, to remind the board, you have certain factors to consider, and it's none of this noise.
Just remind everybody, I understand it can be emotional and stuff, but please no outbursts from the group, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, okay? And but I encourage you to speak. We want to hear what the concerns are. So next person, please.
Hello, I'm Dee McDuffie, and I live on Country View Lane. First of all, I want to thank you for listening to us once more. I know it was a long procedure last time, and here we are again. But that just goes to show you the passion of our area and how much we love the residential area that we live in. So I want to start off just kind of coming full circle from the first meeting that was on June 18th. So I know a bunch of the staff is here, and I know Sarah clearly is from Campton Hills, but besides Sarah, and I know now you, Miss, how many of you are from Campton Hills? The staff. You live in Campton Hills? So one, other. I've lived here for decades, as well as most of my neighbors. If you live here, you realize why we live here, what our values are, and how this school can impact our beautiful residential community. Sarah, you mentioned the farmhouse school, trying to compare it to your proposed school. Basically, that's comparing apples to oranges. The farmhouse school is an historical property that has many buildings on it from the 1800s. It is actually on the Kane County Historical Register. So comparing that property, which was in place before the Fox Mill subdivision was there, so basically the subdivision was after that property, unlike the Orange, the Montessori school, where we're residential and they're trying to change a residential long-time home that was built in a residential area to a school. That's a completely different apple and orange. I know, Mr. Brown, you stated in your memo dated on July 24th, just recently, your own personal example about Ferguson Creek Elementary School. This public school building also has no homes directly next to it, very much like the farmhouse school. It was built to service the geographical area in St. Charles, much like the Belgraham Elementary School in the Fox Mill subdivision in St. Charles. Again, you're comparing apples to oranges. The proposed Montessori school property has always been residential and is surrounded by residential properties. I know there's been a lot of talk about traffic, but I'm going to just kind of pick through what I had written down. We talked about drop-off and pickup times. I mean, this might sound great on paper and in this beautiful presentation, but the fact of the matter is I don't know any parents or children that don't run late, kids that don't get sick and have to be picked up early, in the middle of the day, multiple times a day. Also remember, the public school buses run and have lots of stops on Campton Hills Road, multiple times a day, as well as frequent joggers, walkers, bicycle clubs that travel in groups, farm equipment, grain semis, which would clearly delay the perfect process on paper for drop-off and pickup. We do live in the Midwest. Let's not forget the many rain and snowstorms we have in our area causing power outages. A big question would be, your proposed property is on well and septic. Are you going to have a whole house generator for the safety of the children and the staff? fallen trees, electrical wires, delayed snow removal would all disrupt the perfect process of dropping off and picking up on paper. I think they are clearly underestimating the amount of traffic you'll have coming and going and the timing of such traffic. And I do have a question for you, sir. When did you do this traffic study? So you did it this week? You did the evaluation this week? So the numbers that you came up with were purely from this week?
Yeah. That's average.
We did not perform a full traffic study. It was just a preliminary evaluation, right? The numbers we have that we gave for trip generation are based on Institute of Transportation Engineers numbers that they get from countless surveys, right? They do surveys across the entire country of other private schools, and that's where the numbers we presented are from. The only another number we had was the 600 vehicles a day, and that is an IDOT provided number for Campton Hills Road.
Okay, so basically, there's been no official traffic study to tell exactly how many cars travel on that. And at this time of the year, there are less cars traffic on that road due to people on vacations, not going many places. The kids aren't in school. They're not coming back and forth to their activities. So to estimate a number in an area of which clearly I'm assuming, sir, you're not from the area either, Mr. Lawyer, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, to know what actually the traffic volume is on any specific given day, correct? It's an estimate that you've given us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we were talking about the driveway, and in the last June 18th meeting, Sarah stated on record that the asphalt people who did her extension turnaround, which is not a circle, it's a half arc, by the way, was specifically two-car. It is not a two-car, it's a one-car. In front, it tapers down out to a two-plus car in front of the garage only. Other than that, it's very narrow everywhere else leading up into the front of the garage. Therefore, it has no capacity to have a car coming in and out of the driveway. Cars could be sitting on Campton Hills Road, waiting to enter and exit. Again, it's a 50-mile-an-hour road. That's a huge safety concern. And I actually have a question that came up when I read, Mr. Brown, your memo, again dated July 24th. The approximate number of people and children you had written in your document that would be coming in and out of the driveway on the proposed school, but you never stated anything more about how many people will be coming in and out of the property for the community garden and the special events. That's also written in there and has not been taken into consideration. On the 18th, Sarah said that they were specifically going to have the school for the kids and no events. And now all of a sudden, I see a community garden and special events that maybe would occur only so many times a week or a month or whatnot. So again, more traffic, more safety concerns, especially on a 50-mile-an-hour road. So I would hope that everyone would say that they do not want this, no. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
My name is Frank Delagrazia. I live at 4N 121, Country View Lane. I'm within 500 feet of the property that it's seeking the special permit. Just to go off, a residential house supporting 50 people. That's not residential anymore. Traffic going in and out. This property and surrounding properties have been zoned residential. there shall be no question that a school or any other designation should apply to this residential community. This is only a residential community. Please let it stay that way. A petition, which you all have, it's been circulated, it's signed, supporting a no vote. And we hope that you will comply with the majority of the community and vote no. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Well, I was myself, but my home, our neighbors' homes are all part of Campton Hills Farm subdivision, and it's bound by covenants and restrictions as to how the properties are to be maintained and used. You keep mentioning HOA, but these covenants and restrictions are not HOA rules. They're legal documents that were recorded with Kane County on June 12, 1972, and can be found under Kane County document number 1229233. Book number 2762, pages 239 through 245, as shown on the attachments that I have forwarded to everyone here. The covenants are attached to the title via the warranty deed when purchasing a property in this neighborhood. They run with the land, not the owner of the land or the village of incorporation, and can only be changed by a vote of at least 2/3 of the aggregate landowners. These documents have already been enforced in a court of law in Kane County as well. Kane County case number 04-CH414, Robert and Denise Clark v. Paolo and Carrie Castellano. The court order rendered on 8/24/04 ruled on the covenants and restrictions in favor of the plaintiffs, and the court retained jurisdiction of enforcement until compliance was rendered. The owners of Headwaters Academy admitted that they were given a copy of the covenants and restrictions when they purchased the property. In the warranty deed that they signed when purchasing the property, it specifically states that the deed is subject to general real estate taxes not due and payable at the time of closing, covenants, conditions, and restrictions of record, and building lines and easements. I'd also like to take a quick minute to read the most applicable rules from the covenants and restrictions that are in place on this piece of property. Rule number 1, no tract nor any structure located thereon shall be used for any business or commercial purpose except farming, or in such a manner as to cause noxious odors or create an annoyance or nuisance. Rule number 11A. No structure whatever, except structures appurtenant to farming use, shall be erected, placed, or permitted on any tract except one private residence, to be used only for occupancy as a dwelling by one family, only with the necessary customary outbuildings appurtenant thereto. Rule number 14, the covenants and restrictions set forth herein, with the exceptions herein stated, are for the benefit of all present and future owners of tracts in said subdivision. Declarant and each party who accepts title to any part of said subdivision binds himself, his heirs, legal representatives, successors, and assigns to the covenants and restrictions and every other provision herein contained. It is understood and agreed that all the covenants and restrictions shall run with the land and shall bind and inure to the benefit of declarant and all parties requiring an interest in said subdivision, the respective heirs, successors, and assigns. So, based on the aforementioned rules, it's clear that a school is absolutely not allowed in this location. Again, I emailed all of you guys on Thursday with these documents so you had time to review and verify these facts. Therefore, it makes no sense to approve a special use permit for the property when there are superseding documents that do not allow the land to be used for such a purpose. And I'd like to make an additional point regarding that statement. During the latest Campton Hills rezoning and land use amendment process over the last couple of years, I heard multiple times in the meetings from village officials that if your property contains covenants that strictly allow the use of something or not the use of something, whether it be keeping of animals or something else, the covenants would take precedence over the village zoning ordinance. So I did a little research on this, and I found a village zoning ordinance that clearly states this fact. Campton Hills Ordinance Number 020-13, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of Title 9 Subdivision Regulations of the Village Code of Campton Hills, Kane County, Illinois. In Article 1, Title Applicability and Interpretation, the title says this chapter is known, cited, and referred to as subdivision ordinance, subdivision regulations, or regulations of the Village of Campton Hills. Most importantly, in Article 1.3, which is the interpretation, it states, in interpreting and applying of these regulations, they are held to be the minimum requirements for the promotion and effectuation of the purposes set forth herein. Where these regulations impose greater restrictions or requirements than one imposed or required by other provisions of laws, rules, regulations, covenants, or agreements, these regulations control. Where any easements, covenants, deed restrictions, or agreements between parties impose restrictions greater than those imposed by this chapter, those easements, covenants, deed restrictions, or agreements will control. Now at the end, it does say, however, the village will not enforce any private easements, covenants, deed restrictions, or agreements. So, based on this interpretation, which comes directly from a village ordinance, it's very apparent that the obvious decision in this case is to deny the special use permit for Headwaters Academy. I do understand that the village states it won't enforce these covenants or agreements. However, I would argue at this point it's not requiring any actual enforcement, but just a common sense decision to deny the special use permit for Headwaters, as it is specifically not allowed based on covenants and land restrictions attached to this piece of property. In fact, I would almost argue that approval would be a willful vote to purposely break the covenants by this commission. Finally, I know your vote is supposed to be based on 3 factors. I'm specifically going to point to number 2 that states that the proposed special use is compatible with the general land use of adjacent properties and other property within the immediate vicinity. This fact is completely untrue for Headwaters Academy. Emphasize again that every parcel within the subdivision is either farmland or owned and occupied by a single family in a single family residence. This is fact because that's all the covenants allow. Therefore, a special use permit is absolutely not compatible with adjacent properties, as the school has stated that no one will occupy the house as residents. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter, and I look forward to satisfactory resolution of this situation.
A quick question for you, sir, or maybe someone else can answer it for me. Is there an active homeowners association for
There
the
is not.
subdivision? There is not. Okay. All right, thank you. All right. The gentleman has the podium, please.
Hello, I'm Craig McDuffie. I live on Country View Lane. And I'm going to keep this short and just summarize to the points, right? So the proposed special use will not endanger the public health, safety, and welfare. Well, you've heard from a number of people today. When you think about the categories, you think about the septic system, the floodplain, the list goes on, the traffic. You know, the bridle path is a real concern where we've had issues with the existing family with children around the bridle path and riders. So, you know, and the additional liability. So that, for that, it is actually, it will endanger the whole public in our area. Number 2, and to Vince's point, who was just talking, the proposed special use is compatible with general use of adjacent properties. It's not. And when you look at, and while you say, you know, we don't enforce covenants or anything like that, to me, it would be negligent of you to actually approve the special use, knowing the fact that the covenants actually do stand. So my recommendation is a vote no. The third piece of that is, you know, the special use in specific location proposed is consistent. Again, it's a school. It's not consistent with a residential neighborhood. at all. You know, there's really no valid explanation that that anybody here has really put forth that says that it is compatible, it's in the spirit of it. I mean, basically, the spirit is we're a community of residential neighbors that support each other. A school is not part of the residential neighborhood that supports each other. Thank you for your time. I look forward to possibly having somebody, you know, recommend now a vote for, so we could hear the vote and then move on.
Any other people wish to speak? Couple more?
Hi, I'm Gene Sirico, live at 4N129 Country View Lane. I was wondering if you could pull up the photograph of the driveway, the entrance. With the new paving. No, I want to see the new paving. Yeah, right there. Oh, you had it, you had it. Okay, take a look at this photograph. That road, or that driveway was widened at the entrance of the road. I don't know if there was a permit for that, I don't know, but look at the construction. You could definitely see a difference between the two types of pavement. Will that even hold a car? It looks like they went right over the grass. Now, this is typical of some of the maintenance on this owner's property. Just do whatever you have to do to comply. Not doing it right. And then I'm afraid the whole property is going to just go down, down, down. So I guess that's all I have to say. I just want to bring it to your attention that they go by, they do whatever they have to comply, and that's it. Not doing it right. Look at that photograph.
Good evening. My name is Ray Sandiford. My property is 4N028 Country View Lane. So, what should we consider as acceptable to be overlooked? As a community, why would anyone, why should anyone object to a school? That's the messaging that Headwaters Academy would like you to adhere to. But what type of school is it that's being defined? I'm not sure that it is definitive even in the petitioner's application. We've heard conflicting numbers of enrollment and staff. Per the last meeting minutes, the enrollment was topped at 30 students. The normal criteria, which defines a micro school. Tonight, the testimony has changed, and that number has been increased to 45. That changes the definition by all normal public domain standards and results in the requirements and definition for a private school. There are distinctions between homeschool, micro school, private school, and municipal public school. And there are requirements and regulations adhere to all of those criteria. The distinguished attorney cited established legal precedent, yet conveniently neglects to show or define the equivalence of those precedent to the school as defined by the special use application. Let's look at other things that we may choose to simply overlook. It's been discussed several times this evening that a driveway was modified. Yet their own traffic engineer admits that what was constructed is insufficient for the special use. The septic system and water use have not been addressed by their own admission, yet was not considered or warranted initially as a concern by the petitioner. The petitioner has found, which was not addressed this evening, but the petitioner has found an alternate location in Aurora, Illinois, for the purpose to continue their educational endeavor unimpeded. So my question is this. What makes this special use application and the Campton Hills property superior to the establishment of a school in an alternate location? And finally, I should leave my own opinion to myself, but does the outcry of the neighborhood have any less merit than that of the application or the applicant seeking the variance? I thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'll keep this brief. I'm Kaz Kutab. I'm from DeKalb. I am one of the 2 teachers currently at Headwaters, or the proposed school. I want to thank you all for listening tonight. I want to thank even the counter arguments. My goal, I'm going to just speak for myself for a moment, is to come to school every day to teach kids how to live in the world that they live in. And that includes people that are going to be against them. And I'm not trying to speak all saccharine and anything like that out of some lofty ideals. I genuinely, when asking the question, why here? This is part of the world. I think we've stated explicitly that we want to preserve your way of life. I think we've stated in our presentation the ways we want to address your concerns. I don't want to argue. I don't want to debate. I want to go into a school with my students and feel like we're not hated from all sides. And maybe that sounds crazy. I mean, how could that realistically take place based on the feelings that have been expressed? I urge the committee to look at 2 things. Number 1, when examining the law that you know far better than me and looking at our evidence, is public safety, public health, etc., being met? Not the sense of public safety and public health. These are 2 different things. I do, however, want to point out that the sense of public health and public safety is important to me. I swear on everything to me. I swear on my children, on my wife who's here with me today. I want you to not have an outcry. I want to make that clear. And I think that my view is corroborated by what we've presented tonight. I'm very sorry for the negative feelings, but I think what we've presented, in my view, and feel free if anyone on my side wants to counter this, is, oh, we hear you. We hear your concerns. Here's how we've tried to fix it. And when it comes down to it, my main point is that when you're considering this special zoning committee, the considerations, I think we've given some suggestions. I think we have others open to us. I'm going to echo what my head of school said back on June 18th. We want to work with you. I want you to leave you with one thought experiment. If you all, on the opposition, got everything you wanted, we would be happy. If we got everything we wanted, obviously we'd be happy. But if you got everything you wanted and there was no longer an outcry, we would be really happy. If we had all the money in the world to make electric fences and anything that you needed, we would do that for you. I think I can speak for my team. That's the point of the school, to live peacefully within the world as it exists, not to go out and change the points of view, to live within different points of view. I ask you, and I have no answer to this, only you can answer this. If you got everything that you wanted, would you still not want us there? If we did everything, if we got down on our knees and we could afford it, if we did everything we could for you, would you still have a problem? If that is true, then I just want to examine that why, and I want the zoning committee to imagine that. Because as far as I understand, and again, echoing my head of school, we are open to changing whatever we can change to meet your demands. And if you still have a problem with that, then I feel like that's a feelings-based thing. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, it's Kevin Porkamp again, adjacent to the property.
from the start of this project, the neighborhood wasn't included. They weren't consulted. They still haven't been consulted. There still haven't been conversations with neighbors regarding this or hearing their concerns. They have lawyers, they have whatever it is. They have pretty words here saying, oh, we want to be part of the community. But they have isolated themselves from the community that's there. They haven't reached out to us. They haven't had discussions with us. They haven't heard our concerns. And that is not consistent with the message I just did here at all. It's very inconsistent. It's fact. It's action, not words.
Thank you.
We're taking closing, Mr. Chairman, point of order, are we taking closing statements now as well? Is that it?
We're just trying to wrap up here pretty quickly so we can have a discussion of our own and then come to some type of consensus.
I didn't know that we could double dip, so I've been thinking a little bit more about some things, and, you know, I think it's important for people to understand the process here in any municipality, okay? I didn't know anything about municipal government until I started paying attention about 4.5 years ago, because I was trying to fight for the rights for Campton Hills residents when Mike Terrell, our old president, was trying to take them away. The reason that Mike Terrell wanted to talk about covenants is because he wanted control over people. The reality is covenants are a private agreement that are generally run by an HOA. If you don't have an HOA, it's okay. You can still uphold the covenants by suing someone individually. So you could bring the money to the table, you can sue them, you could fight it out in court. But I will say one thing. I spent about an hour a couple weeks ago, because this really bugged me, and when things bug me, I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And I did some research on these two cul-de-sacs, and there are many people that are also in violation of those covenants. And you have detached garages, you're not allowed to have those. You're only allowed to have an outbuilding for horses. So, before you throw stones in a glass house, I really
all right.
recommend.
No
And
comments in the
also
gallery.
permits, pools, fences. Did you guys all get pool
Holly,
and fence
Holly, let's-
permits? I don't think you
Please-
did. I
please-
verified it.
Hang on, hang on.
I'm
I
just
don't want to get
saying.
into accusations
I-
about this stuff, so please stick to the facts.
Fair enough,
Okay.
but this is public comment, and I'm actually allowed to say anything I want to.
Okay, comments, please, just the person at
If
the
we
podium
still
speak,
had the
please.
2007 zoning ordinance, this was 100% permitted with 0 permissions given. County would have had nothing to do with this in Campton. This was changed December 3rd, 2024, whatever year we're in. This was changed. So before that, because our 2023 ordinance was invalid, because they didn't follow the proper procedures, the statute, we floated with no zoning ordinance. Another thing everybody should know that I'm just going to say, because we deleted in its entirety the Kane County 2007 ordinance. We followed that part of the statute properly. We, however, used the wrong statute and did not put in the 2023 ordinance properly. Well, you don't know, I do. Yeah, I know, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
All right, can we, please.
So this would have been completely legal had we still had the Kane County ordinance.
All right, please try, just let the person at the podium make this discussion, right? All right. I'm going to ask the commissioners, if you had enough testimony to start to make a decision, would you like to hear more, or would you?
Only if there's any new points.
Are any new points, any new points at all? Yes,
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
okay, okay. Does the applicant wish to make a closing statement at all?
No, Mr. Chairman, other than to say we agree with you with your opening statement on the covenants. I don't think they're relevant for tonight's discussion. It's a separate issue. But other than that, we have no further comments.
All right, seeing that there's no more comments coming out here, discussion within the,
Would you mind repeating your motion?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
okay, just before we do that, Okay, go ahead, make the motion. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. A discussion? If you close the public, if you leave the public hearing open, if you have questions, then you can ask the petitioner or their people, you can ask questions and get more feedback. If you close it, then you have to reopen the public hearing and then re-ask. So-
My only concern is one of our commissioners stepped out, maybe he'd have an opinion, and how do you want to handle that? Do you want to wait on this motion, or let him come back, or?
I would just prefer that we not close my view is that not to close the public hearing, okay?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. That way, if we do have questions, we can ask that, and then we can hopefully get to a consensus.
I'm a little confused. Are you saying we will have our discussion and then also ask questions of the,
Just in case you had questions, if we have a discussion and all of a sudden you have questions about something, then you can ask the petitioner or ask somebody that, because the public hearing is still open. All right, so if you close it, then you have to reopen it.
does
So-
anybody have any further questions? I guess that'd be the real question.
I suggest that we just basically continue our discussion without closing the public hearing, would be my suggestion.
I think what the chairman's saying is if during our discussion, questions arise. So I would
Correct.
favor
Correct.
your recommendation and leave the public hearing open until there's no further discussion.
Okay, all right, but thank you for the motion, and that's a good discussion there. Okay, so, we can, first of all, are there any questions that you have at the top of your, do you have any questions, or things that you'd like to discuss?
Can I just make
The
a,
only-
Yes, yeah.
The only thing I would ask is, there's
Hang on a
just-
second, I'll just have
Go
the
ahead.
attorney
Sorry,
speak
go
first,
ahead.
and then.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go,
Just
yeah.
briefly, because we've had some discussion at the prior meetings and also this evening regarding covenants. The zoning ordinance is very clear, and Mr. Brown was instrumental in working on the renewed zoning ordinance just this past year. In section 1.3 applicability, right at the beginning of the zoning ordinance, it discusses the zoning ordinance, which is the village's document. It's part of the village code, and its relation to private agreements, including covenants. And it very succinctly indicates that while covenants can be more restrictive, but not less restrictive, the individuals that are charged with the administration and enforcement of the zoning ordinance, which is both yourselves, the village board, village staff, do not enforce any private agreements. So, there was some discussion tonight about relation of covenants, association rules with regard to the zoning ordinance, completely separate, altogether. They're not part of the elements that you're to consider this evening, and it's very clear in the zoning ordinance that the village not only does not enforce them, but that they could be more restrictive than the zoning ordinance that the village doesn't enforce. So, I just wanted to provide that context.
Okay, all right. Now, Andrew, yes.
Yeah, so, just as we're making our decision here, on the one side, we're talking about there may be and will be and possibly can be conditions, a list of conditions that would be added to the ability to open and run a school. And those
Correct.
conditions would come during, I would assume, a permit process and a construction process and a code.
Actually, we could hear from right now.
Yeah,
today.
so there are conditions on the one side, and then on the other side, obviously, you have, the homeowners, the current residents there, and their covenant. So I think that, that's something that we'll think about, we'll talk about, and understand that, there's a great deal of conditions that they're willing, according to what I heard, I think I heard it, that they're willing to meet, or at least address.
Yes, you could recommend conditions this evening that you can place on, if you recommend approval, you can recommend or include conditions in the recommendation. The village board can accept all of them, they can remove some of them, they can add some of them, add additional ones. If the special use is eventually granted by the village board, it's in a formal document, it's recorded on title, those conditions remain on the special use. Any change in that special use, depending on the severity of the change, would potentially require another hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission and then further board approval. special use amendments happen from time to time, changes in the property. You know, it's not, so that, absolutely. It's a good idea to speak about conditions if you are considering a positive recommendation.
Mr. Brown?
I just want to add on to what the attorney said and address some of your earlier comments. There's a couple hurdles that the school has to clear, and one is zoning, and the other is all of the other rules and regulations that we have. And they can have one and get stopped at the other, and I've seen that happen before. I think of another community where we approved a car wash, where we approved a drive-through for Starbucks, and none of them came to fruition because other engineering and some other different issues came up, and they were never built. So, as Mr. Frank indicated, the condition of approval would be they fulfill all of the requirements. That would include ADA, that would include the septic fields, that would include all the fire and safety issues that the fire department may bring up, or other engineering issues that may arise when we start to evaluate things, building code issues. All right, so those are two related, but they can be separate tracks.
All right.
But if we, or the village board includes those conditions as part of the special use, then the special use only becomes effective when those conditions are all met.
Well, the special use, if it were granted by the village board, the operation of the use, the beginning of the use, would be contingent on the conditions being met.
Great.
And there are several layers, as Mr. Brown
Right.
said. One of the conditions is going to be that you satisfy all other applicable codes, regulations, procedures of the village, or any other, governmental authority having authority over the property and its use. So the villages, in general terms, control prior to the beginning of operation would be a certificate of occupancy.
Right, that's it.
The village does not have a business license.
We don't.
We don't.
We don't, no.
Some businesses, some villages do, so that would be another layer of regulatory authority. But there are other governmental authorities, as we've heard about tonight, that have varying layers of control. The applicant may or may not be able to reach those, but that is a matter that's outside of the condition that you placed on it tonight. You placed the condition, whether or not they can meet the condition later on, that's up to the applicant.
But if you make the conditions, if it's required that they meet the condition prior to the special use being granted, or in effect that the conditions must be met before the special use becomes effective, therefore that if they don't meet those conditions, the special use goes away.
Yes.
As opposed to the special use being granted, and then the permitting process.
They haven't
has to
satisfied
be-
the conditions to get the special use.
Right,
Correct.
the use can't begin,
Yeah.
like the actual operation could not begin until potentially some of the conditions are met. But similarly, some of the conditions would be required to be met before the next ones in line would be met, just by a matter of simple, order of procedure. But, for instance, like if one of the conditions was to widen the driveway, let's say, that doesn't mean that after the special use is granted and the driveway is widened, and after operation of the school after some time, that they could remove the additional width of the driveway. That would be a condition on the special use that if it changed later, that would be a violation of the special use. And that could affect, or would likely affect, the village's allowance for that use to continue there.
I
It would
guess-
be in violation of.
What I'm trying to understand, though, is if we grant the special use and then the school decides to move or whatever, that special use stays with the property.
It
So-
typically does, but sometimes
And that's
there are.
that's what I'd like to try to avoid, that the special use is only granted when all the conditions are met and not dependent on the permitting process afterwards to bring the property into compliance.
Sure, and there are certainly sometimes applicants that are willing to accept the condition that the special use only remains under the current ownership. They don't expire as long as it's continued to be used. It's very common, and I believe the zoning ordinance does have an abandonment provision as well. So if it's not utilized for a period of time, then it is deemed abandoned, and a new special use would have to be adopted. A change in the type of use, even though similar to the one that's authorized under the special use, would also not be authorized. I think we talked about that at the last hearing. If another operator came in and wanted to operate some other type of school,
and the village is the body that actually implements. So I think there's a difference, this discussion about compliance with laws or conditions. You could make a recommendation that says before the village board even adopts the ordinance, the issues raised by the fire protection district must be satisfactorily addressed. That's different than saying if the ordinance is adopted, the applicant must comply with all laws, meet permitting requirement. There's a difference between those. So for example, you heard the discussion this evening about the septic and the drainage and that kind of stuff. You could easily make it your recommendation that that issue be comfortably resolved before any ordinance is adopted.
No homeowner is ever going to buy a house with a commercial grade sprinkler system retrofitted running through the house. No homeowner is ever going to buy something with ADA accessibility when they don't need it. And nobody's going to want to have a commercial grade wastewater treatment system. No homeowner is going to want to have to maintain it, test it, and live with it. So you'd be condemning this property to be a commercial property from this point on.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I got.
All right, so what I would like to do is have the motion that I'll read out of here, out of the packet, and then some discussion, and to see how we want to move forward on this, all right? So here is the motion that I'm going to read. I motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Village Board the approval of an application for a special use to allow a school at 42 West 420 Campton Hills Road, which is in a residential zoning district. Additionally, I motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward the 3 findings as discussed by the commission at this meeting and stated in the staff memorandum, and any additional recommendations by the Planning and Zoning Commission. That is the motion. Like I said, it was intentionally stated in the affirmative, so that if you wanted to vote yes, you would recommend, if you vote no. So, but I have a motion. I'd like to see if I want to move to make the motion, or do you have more discussion that you'd like?
So you're asking for someone to make that motion?
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I've read the motion, but I'm asking someone to make it, so thank you for the clarification. Would someone like to make move on? If not,
I'll motion to move ahead with your motion.
okay, I have a motion. I just read the motion. Compliant, I think that.
Under that.
Including ADA, okay. All right, there's one. I think there's a lot of concern with the, I'm not sure if that's under building codes, but I know there was a lot of concern with, they have to have the Kane County Health Department sign off on the septic. And so that you'd have to get a certificate of, I'm not sure what the exact terminology is, but approval by the Kane County Health Department.
Usually that means that
Send it to them, they'll bring it back to them, and they'll have.
In the 70s. And also, that in itself is a concern right there, because
So wouldn't that, the health department then be, that would make that determination, right?
I don't know if they would or not. They would probably say because it's existing or something like that. I don't know. But the
I
thing
think
is,
it's the
a
health
decision by us, as to because we are concerned about the water quality of Mill Creek. I mean, we have all these overlay maps of environmental areas and things like that. And so, right off the top, the fact that you have a property that's in a floodplain zone, according to FEMA, then, you know, are you going to compound that error by adding more to it? And that can be a decision that's more up to us, because we are very concerned about floodplain zone areas. In fact, we increased the amount of setback you had to be away from a flood zone area in our zoning codes. So that's right off the top a thing I'm concerned about, because we have stressed our water is a big issue here in this village and in our township. So I don't know what condition there is. I'm just saying this is something for consideration.
I'm saying, what I would say is that the King County, it's a sign off by the King County Health Department.
Well,
They're the
that's,
people.
that's not,
Well, you have
that,
something
we
else that you're-
we can control our own environmental issues here in the
Based on what?
village.
Based
Based
on
on
what?
our zoning code, based on the environmental mapping we've done of areas where we've required setbacks of more than, I think, 250 feet from flood zone areas. And so we're only would be compounding the problem if you're going to increase that in a situation that should have been built in that area in the first place.
Right. Currently, you
That's-
cannot build in a floodplain, anything.
Yeah.
Houses,
That's not correct.
septic.
That's not correct. That's not correct.
It is.
No, that you can build in a floodplain, in a 100-year flood zone, hazard area, you can build. It's the floodway, it's the floodway.
So why has King County denied that year after year after year?
It might have been the floodway and not the floodplain. If you're building in the floodplain, there are certain measures you have to do to mitigate it, but it can be approved, it has to go through IDNR and FEMA, and it can be built in a regulatory flood hazard area.
That's not what we've been told.
Well,
For
that's-
years,
well-
I don't
for
think they're
years,
building
we've been
anything.
told.
Well, and they aren't built it, there's nothing that's going to trigger, it's already
Right.
built, so if
Yeah,
they do
that-
something that triggers a review by IDNR or FEMA,
Because
then it
you're-
will go up, and
you're
then there's.
adding on to
It's the regulatory, the 100-year floodplain, commonly referred to, so even if you are building something, there are ways that you can build in that area. You have to ensure that, for example, it's elevated, it's on stilts or whatever, but it can be done.
Yeah, I
It's
just
a
want-
lengthy review process, but it can be done.
Okay.
It's-
All
but
right.
I'm not-
Excuse me.
And so,
I
yes,
just
sir.
wanted to clarify.
Yes. Please, the person
And
at the
that would
podium
go
has
to- that would
the
go to-
voice,
yeah, I
please
realize
not. No cross chatter, please.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, as Mr. Brown said, there are regulations that talk about building in the floodplain, which I think Commissioner Johnson, I think that's your name, is concerned about. There's no proposal to build in the floodplain here. There just isn't. I understand the comments that were made by Mr. Korth. I understand his comments about doing something that could impact land that's in a floodway or not a floodway, a flood zone. But again, I think that is correct, that it's a health department issue. No proposal to build anything in the floodplain is on the table here, and I believe that's what your village regulations address.
I think if it falls into anything, the concern might be if there has to be, as part of our considerations, and again, through the health department and storm and water, is if there has to be a change to the well, the septic system, and it has to be enlarged, and enlarges into whatever, that would be the flood plain. But again, that would be a consideration that would be looked at, and I believe that health department and storm and water would be involved.
And it doesn't have to be limited to the Kane County Health Department. Your recommendation could say that the village has to get comfortable with that, the board should get
Right.
comfortable with that issue. That's your recommendation, that the board get comfortable with that entire issue before they adopt an ordinance.
Yeah, that's going to easily fall under our consideration when it comes to
Yeah.
health department and storm and water. I would say the other thing on that consideration when it comes to, streets and safety is going to be obviously the condition of the traffic and streets and culverts, and that's all going to fall under the permitting process, I would imagine. As far as the driveway, the culvert system that's going to be used going over.
Those would be our recommendations. I mean, what do we recommend? Do we recommend?
I would recommend the usage and the car traffic over what is considered village, the first 15 feet or so in a culvert system. And I would also recommend, listen, one of the points that was brought up continuously, and I hope you guys caught on to it, is it's a 50-mile-an-hour road. And there will be cars trying to turn in and out. I build roads and parking lots for a living, and I put no turn signs and right-only signs and stop signs in all the time. And so there's going to be, I would imagine, some cars on the street trying to turn in with other cars coming at them at 50, 55 miles an hour. So I think that's going to probably be taken into consideration, I would say.
I think to answer your comments, that's some of what the traffic engineer had identified, is to widen the driveway in some
Yeah.
areas, to make it 20 feet, so it is two lanes in and out, to widen some of the turn radius up by the
Yeah, widened driveway
house.
is not as effective as you may think unless you have an actual turning lane designated for that driveway.
But the counts and the traffic counts from the traffic study don't warrant a right turn lane.
No, I understand they don't warrant it, but what I'm saying is that one of the considerations is that we are going to have a widened driveway, yes, but there are going to be vehicles that are going to, at some point, be stopped on the road, waiting for somebody to come in or out, and there are other vehicles coming at 50, 55, 60 miles an hour, whatever it is. I promise I won't drive that fast ever on that road. But, it's just, if we're going to talk about a list of considerations, I'm giving you one of my considerations, and that is, I think it's a safety thing, right?
Yeah, but we're trying to give consideration of how to mitigate those
Well,
things. And
I think the
with
mitigate is
recommendation-
take
I
the
think one of
traffic
things
study
we would
that we
say-
have and,
The
work on
recommendations
that.
that have been provided by the petitioner's study there, they've got 7 bullet points. You could include those 7 bullet
Okay.
points, which is to include widening to 20 feet, and the northern edge of the circular dive should be widened, changing the access, the radii of the turning in from Campton Hills Road, and then talking about dividing the drop-off pickup times, as enrollments. So I think we could include those recommendations.
And work
along-
off of those.
And just use those 7 as part of the recommendations for
Yeah.
safety.
Yeah,
And if there's
absolutely.
anything else you'd like to add to that, that would be something.
I agree with those recommendations that, we should make those mandatory, not
Yep.
just recommendations.
So our recommendations to have those conditions, that's those conditions.
Yes.
Any other conditions, traffic-wise, that you think that you would want? We already talked about ADA and all that compliance and stuff, so that should be covered with parking and all that kind of stuff, so.
There's, I think there should be some sort of condition that the school bear the costs of this burden that be placed on the village, in effect, to monitor this, whether or not their pickup and drop-off and turns in and out and all that are actually being executed over time. It can't just be, okay, we agreed to that, and then 2 years later, it's not being done. And then is the village going to have to come back and spend time and money to prove a case one way or the other? So, I mean, I don't quite understand.
So
Or the
it's
village
like a
has,
look-
if you want to do a look back, the village has to hire a traffic study or whatever you want to look back on. So there's a cost to the village. And as the attorney stated, Mr. Frank stated that that in most cases, they've never had any times
Additional-
that wasn't
additional, yeah.
approved,
Right.
that it was with a look back. But yet,
Right.
there's going to be a cost. So why should the village that has no taxes have to start worrying about paying for potential costs in the future like this? That'd be my opinion.
Does the attorney want to
I can
address
just
that?
say, adding a condition that cost of monitoring would be on the applicant would not be a problem. The other thing that I would note is, we're proposing that if the board were to adopt the ordinance, ultimately, one of the conditions we would assume that the board would require, and you could recommend it, is that this traffic management plan that the school has committed to would be a condition of the ordinance. The failure to enforce it would be a violation of the ordinance, just like any violation of any zoning ordinance violation that any resident of the village could be subjected to, and that would be a violation of the ordinance. Your ordinance, I'm sure, I don't know what the amount is, but I'm sure your ordinance says if you violate this ordinance in any respect, we have the right to, give you a ticket, enforce a code do a code a code enforcement action, and I don't know what yours is, Mr. Forte, but, you know, in a lot of villages, cities, it's like $750 a day. It's $500 a day for every day the violation is taking place. So you have penalties, and typically the ordinances of approval do say any costs of enforcement are on the applicant.
May I talk?
No.
No.
Not right now, not right now, thank you.
But he can't.
I asked for specifically two questions that we are making our discussions. So, all right? So, yes, Jim?
Okay, with regards to the traffic issues, school zone signs, they need to be, you know, addressed for the cost of the school zone signs on the highway
I
department.
don't believe that it warrants a school zone. I don't believe it warrants, that was the last meeting that we were at.
It probably wouldn't warrant the
wouldn't
school
warrant the
zone
school
signs.
zones. You wouldn't have school zone signs.
The 20-mile-an-hour limit, it
Yeah.
probably
No,
wouldn't
but
warrant it.
just a warning sign.
Oh, we could put, we could do that by, I
Right,
think,
but
ordinance
but
here
that's
if you
a-
want,
that's
just
an
caution
additional
school,
cost to the
caution
highway
school ahead.
department,
Yeah,
so
caution
Okay.
school
they should
ahead,
be-
something like that.
Okay.
Here
So
for
you
the
want
next.
a caution, like a school sign, okay. School entrance,
Or, yes.
school entrance sign, okay.
And as council said, that the cost of enforcement, or like has been discussed up here, a look-back provision, that could be a condition, applicant to bear the cost. I mean, there's also a possibility that you could ask for a more, let's say, in-depth actual traffic study that is performed prior to the special use ordinance being considered by the village board. That may even be something that the village board will actually ask for. I've seen that happen before, when it's just a preliminary report that's provided at the zoning board level. So that's also something to consider. That would be in addition to the conditions that were recommended by the engineer tonight.
Right, okay. All right.
I want to address conditions, or certainly issues that need some sort of condition at the bare minimum, and that is for the adjacent property owners that have both concerns about bridle path and their horses, as well as concern about management of natural areas. Where do you place the burden on the school to make sure that if someone needs to burn off their prairie and it's the right day and the right time, that there's no interference and there's no, none of the neighboring members of the school are going to be anywhere near it for the sake of the person who's trying to manage his or her property. Likewise, what conditions you're going to put out there to ensure that bridle path which is part of the community, that bridle path is going to be maintained, have safety there for the horses and the riders.
Well, what, I'm not trying to dig or anything, but, I mean, you.
That's what I'm trying to
I'm thinking
do,
about it, but, I mean,
and
what-
our attorney.
But, I mean,
and all.
we've got prescribed burns, I'm just trying to think through it logically. We have prescribed burns.
That doesn't mean you might not have complaints with a bunch of school children next to someone that's trying to, A, ride down the bridle path safely, or if they're doing natural area management.
So I think with regard to the bridle path and safety concerns that residents have identified with regard to equestrian uses, I know that the applicant has spoken about different types of installation of, whether it be fencing or landscape buffers, things like that. Those are likely things that you could consider. What, if anything, could be done to increase the, let's say, projected distance between an individual who's on the applicant's property and the surrounding property with regard to equestrian uses. With regard to controlled burning, obviously anything would be done pursuant to any regulations that are in effect for that. Notifying the local fire authority or fire district. Many communities, the village is no different, operate on a complaint-based system. So anyone can complain if somebody's just burning something in their fire pit, and oftentimes in the fall, people do complain and say that their neighbors are burning leaves when they may not be burning leaves. So, not sure what kind of restriction we would be able to place on, on the applicant not, having a concern if there was something that was done that was unsafe, but if something was done pursuant to any applicable regulations, that would be perfectly allowable by the neighbors to do that, to prescribe burn any native areas. You could put restrictions on where on the property that the school children could be located. And, I mean, I think it sounded like the applicant did say that there will be certain areas where they would be located. You could maybe even restrict those more, to say that they would not be allowed within certain areas if they're, within X amount of feet from
The bridle path.
the bridle path, or if they're not in actual, portions of the property in general. So if that's something that is a concern, I would encourage you to look at that too.
So like fencing, you could say fencing would be one option, from the bridle path?
Would
It's
have
on-
to
I
be-
believe
it'd
that's on
have-
the western
It'd have to
portion
be
of the
set
property.
back away from it.
And with a lot of special uses or other types of uses that come to these types of hearings, you talk about landscape buffers, you talk about berms. I mean, I'm not talking about this specific property in general, but that's often something that is considered. And a lot of it has to typically do with sight lines. Sometimes it's a fence on top of a berm, or whatever it might be, landscape on top of a berm.
I'm
So-
concerned, though, that, one of the big emphasis of our comprehensive plan and our zoning has been to try to encourage horse properties, semi-rural, ag, et cetera. And yet, here we see a case where we're impacting people who are embracing that lifestyle and have invested their money that way, and now we're potentially there could be a situation arising where a neighboring property would take away from all those years. So how do you deal with that? I mean,
Right, so I think,
you know.
I think we have two separate issues. Right now, we're talking about conditions if you were to make a positive recommendation. I think that the issue that you just raised is relevant for the discussion of whether or not this particular special use application can meet the elements, one relating to the compatible use with the surrounding properties. So that is an overall first question. If that, you believe that has been met, then you address the conditions. But because
Well,
we
that's
wanted to
what-
have the discussions in general, you're discussing conditions now. So.
I mean, that's, well, my concern here is that if you were to, say, approve something, then I would say, okay, let's figure out the conditions. I think we need to determine whether or not this is something we want to approve, yes or no, period, okay, up front in terms of recommending it to the village board. So, and then we decide, okay, if we're going to do this, then let's look at the conditions and not, start making up all these mitigations when right now we do not know how this commission feels about how they will vote on the general thing. And you just said that because, well, this goes back to compatibility, and that's one of the primary things.
I
So
think because
I'm
there've been a
little
lot of different,
confused.
because there've been a lot of different issues raised, I think that, discussing conditions first.
helps.
and
I think it
It
helps.
could help. Another way to frame the conversation, on the flip side of what is happening now, is to just take a general consensus. If there's anyone who is, adamantly feeling one way or the other, you can get a feel for the room between all of you, that even with the conditions that have been discussed, or even just discussed in the presentation itself, there's no way that you would vote for this in favor, or you are adamantly in support of it, and we want to talk about conditions. So that's another way to frame the discussion.
I think looking at the hour and stuff, I'd like to at least entertain that discussion about, I got
And
some
then-
strong feelings one way or the other, and then we can go from there.
And if you have a majority one way or the other, then if the majority is in favor, then you start talking about conditions.
Okay, all right.
Makes more sense to me than spending hours figuring out something before we have a feeling for what might be going on now. How do you go about conducting a consensus? If it's not a vote, obviously.
It's not a vote, it's not a vote.
I know,
All
but I
right.
just didn't know how,
Okay.
if there's a
So what do you think?
procedural thing for a consensus.
No, it's just a conversation, so Does anybody have strong feelings?
I guess with some of the, placing certain conditions on the recommendation for approval, I would be comfortable voting in the positive or voting yes, recommending approval to move it to the village board.
Okay, there's one. All right. Anybody else got a feeling one way or the other?
You know, my vote is definitely a no at this point.
Okay, all right,
Mine is too.
okay,
I'm going to go no.
all right. All right. So that's the quorum, 4 of no.
So we got the motion on the floor. Can we call the vote? Call the vote?
Yes, we can call the vote. Any other discussion before?
I think anticipating that the recommendation will be negative, I think it would be helpful to have a discussion
Conditions?
on, well.
Or not conditions, but
since- Right, since
the opposite side?
Correct, if, just a brief discussion on the elements and the findings and which standards you believe have not been met and why, so that the record can reflect. It'll be helpful for the village board in their discussion.
Okay. All right.
And the, maybe point to what page in the packet that those are on so that they can.
The original memo for the June meeting. So the original memo, oh, sorry. Page, this discussion starts on page 8 of 9. It's at the bottom of the page. Give me a copy of it.
Which, I've got 8 of 14. What is? 8 of
You're
14.
talking about right here?
Yeah, the next page.
If you have tonight's packet, it's on page 12 of 14. also.
12 of 14, thank you.
Oh, yeah, tonight's packet, I'm sorry, it's in there as well.
Looking at,
So looked at that time with the fact that we became a village and we're all of a sudden not supposed to honor covenants that have been there established through these subdivisions, and these people that have been here longer than we've been a village, and we're supposed to just tell them no and screw you. I'm having a real difficult time with that. You know, they have these houses there, and they have these animals and these horses and whatever, and they were set up a certain way, and I would imagine if one day they decide to sell them, they want to sell them with that particular way. And so it just seems to have a negative effect on their particular property. So my no is specifically based on 1 and 2.
Okay, so I'm just trying to verbalize some of this stuff you're saying. So we're going to go through all 3 of these and then try to add with the comments. So the proposed special use will not endanger the public health, safety, welfare. You believe it will endanger, or I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just trying to paraphrase
No, it's okay, you
everything.
can.
So will endanger public health, safety, or welfare, okay?
absolutely. Yeah,
And-
I know.
And based on, and-
Based on the fact that these are people who live in these homes, we know that they have horses, we know that they ride, we know that they do what they do, and somebody, you know, I believe you said, a horse can get startled, somebody can get hurt.
Okay.
There's a child can get hurt who happens to get away from somebody who's not paying attention, not watching them. So to me, it just seems like there's a lot of different ways that somebody can get hurt here and be in danger.
okay.
I still don't understand why we have to go into this much depth and detail.
It's.
We're trying to we're making a recommendation to the village board. And
Yes.
so- Yeah,
Yes,
Because
and we feel it
Illinois
is not
Municipal
fit,
Code- Well, the Illinois
the
Municipal Code
situation.
requires that these applications are,
findings of fact.
that are addressed based on these 3 standards. And as Commissioner Lorario provided, he did provide context for the answer, not just simply a conclusory statement. I don't feel that they've been met. It's very helpful for the village board to not just hear, no, we recommend no, because it doesn't meet 1, 2, and 3, but hearing why. And that will provide more context for them in their discussion.
Well, won't the petitioners still come forward to the village board and present a similar packet of information?
They have the right to, they're not required to. Sometimes people do, sometimes they don't. Obviously, on a positive recommendation, it's a lot less often that an applicant comes. On a negative, they typically do. But still, it helps the village board to have an understanding, not just from the applicant's perspective and those that are objecting to the special use, why they feel that these elements have not been met, or the standards have not been met, but also from your members to know why you believe that they have not been met.
Okay. All right, any other comments from other members? This is the first proposal, the proposal number 1. So let's go with, nominate your public health safety. Any comments you'd like to add on that?
So we're going by each of the findings first, one?
That's what I'd like to do.
Okay, or I can give you all 3 at once.
Okay, all right, that's fine, that's fine, you can do either one.
All right. I tend to agree that there may be little or no apparent risk due to traffic, noise, or kids at play. However, with the hydrologic, geologic information presented tonight, I question the suitability of increasing the septic system to accommodate the school, and further, the suitability of placing any structure within the Mill Creek floodplain that uniquely covers that parcel. Secondly, the proposed special use is not compatible with the general land use of adjacent properties and other properties within the immediate vicinity. The current owners and petitioners failed to perform due diligence before purchasing. Adjacent and surrounding neighbors have abided by the covenants for over 30 years and deserve to maintain the status quo that they all expected. Third finding, the special use in that specific location proposed is not consistent with the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance and adopted village land use policies. While the RE2 zoning allows for schools as a special use, these are best incorporated when planning new developments where neighborhood and site plans could be optimized. Current and potential surrounding landowners would then be aware of the special use and could provide recommendations to integrate it into the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you, thank you for your input. All right.
Ralph?
All right. Yes,
I would ditto what Jim just said for me.
okay, times 2. All right. Okay. Any other findings of fact? If not, should we take a voice, I'm sorry, a roll call on vote on the motion on the table? So the motion is a reminder, the motion is to approve with conditions. And so a yes would be to approve, and a no would be to not recommend.
Yeah, technically, the motion is just to approve, because,
Yes.
yeah, it was not amended. So,
Yes.
Right, and if a
Thank you.
majority votes no, then it would be a negative recommendation.
Yes. All right,
And I believe the motion was to adopt the findings as discussed.
correct.
Yep.
If you, Mr. Brown, you want to call the roll?
Call the roll. Chairman Frederick,
Yes.
Commissioner Teat,
Yes.
Commissioner Kopeck,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Lavario,
No.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
McKelvey's absent.
Kelby's absent, motion is denied. 4-2. Okay. Okay, so, Mr. Brown, what do you need from us then? Anything further discussion, information-wise, or do you have everything on the recording and everything that you can get?
That's fine.
Okay, all right.
So just,
Yes, please.
just for the applicant's sake and for the public's sake,
Hey,
the,
just the last few comments, please. Just want to make sure that the attorney's heard, so thank you for your quiet.
just for the applicant's sake and the public's sake, now that this public hearing is closed and has resulted in a
motion,
recommendation, I mean, we'll adjourn. But the pursuant to the zoning ordinance, the Planning and Zoning Commission has no more than 60 days to provide its findings and recommendation to the village board for its consideration. That does not mean that action has to be taken at that time, but that's when it has to be presented to the village board. So we don't have a set date for what village board meeting that will appear on, but it will be on the agenda that will be posted no later than 48 hours prior to that meeting occurring. The village board typically meets on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, typically only once a month in the summer. It's an open session in this room. If you look at the website, when the agenda is posted, it would be on there prior to the meeting happening. Correct. Correct. And the report and recommendation will be included in the packet for that meeting.
All right.
Tuesday.
You got a motion to close the public hearing? Or is that, or vote close it? Vote close it? Okay,
Yeah,
let's.
vote closes it.
And if there's nothing else to discuss, then how about a vote to recommend adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Adjourned. All right.
Well, all I can say is this went a lot better than FIBA.
Thanks.
But parents spent $1.1 million on that property.
What?
Yeah, you know, so they're spending the money. I bet you, I doubt it's coming from their daughter, the head nurse. So,
By the time they get done with that, you're analyzing the,
If you